Hello, good evening. Thank you all so much for coming to our Sweet Home Wildfire event tonight. My name is Hallie Frazee. I'm the Wildfire Communications Manager at Pacific Power. Tonight we've got a fair number of people here from Pacific Power, a lot of your local folks. Our Regional Business Manager, Scott. Where'd you go, Scott? Oh, there he is. We've got two folks from our Veg Management team, Tony, Ben. There you are. Awesome. Austin, our Operations Director. We've got our two distribution managers, Nicole and Darren. Oh, front and back, nice. I like it. And we've got our VP of Customer and Community Solutions, Corey. Awesome. And I'm sure you guys have noticed, we also have some folks in the back of the room. We've got Rick here with the Lynn County Sheriff's Office. And we've got Christian here with Sweet Home Fire. We've also got our customer service team here. So if you guys have any questions about your account or getting signed up for alerts, they're definitely here to help you after the event. So we're here tonight to kind of talk about what we do as a company to prevent wildfires. I've got a team of our experts up here. Excuse me. I've got Nora Yatsov, our Emergency Management Director. And then we have Melissa Swenson, our Wildfire Mitigation Program Delivery Director, and Chester Lampkin, our Senior Meteorologist. And so each of them is going to come up here and talk just a little bit about some of the different things we do. But before we get started, we're just going to show you a little bit of video to kind of give you an introduction to what we're going to talk about tonight.
We are living in a world where there is more extreme weather, and wildfire risk continues to escalate. Here at Pacific Corp, we are making the investments necessary to protect the public and to protect the infrastructure and to protect the people of this company as well.
While the wildfire risk has been increasing here in the West, the investments that Pacific Corp has made has risen right along with it. To date, we've already spent over $500 million in wildfire mitigation, and the current forecast for deploying the system hardening that's involved in the wildfire mitigation plan reaches into the billions over the next 8-10 years. It becomes important to understand, well, where do we prioritize those investments? And so we want to make sure we're targeting that large investment where it's going to make the most impact, where it's going to reduce that fire risk the most.
We have an expansive weather station network here at Pacific Corp. By the end of 2023, in Pacific Power, we had nearly 300 weather stations, and in Rocky Mountain Power, we had nearly 200 weather stations. They're there because we're collecting important meteorological data that we're going to feed into our local weather forecast models. Temperature, wind, moisture levels, wind gusts. These hundreds of weather stations give us better data so that we can make better decisions on how to mitigate fire risk and how to protect the system from extreme weather events.
So by establishing an internal meteorology team, they're able to run these risk models with our own weather station network to help identify that risk no matter where and no matter when across our entire service territory throughout the year.
We have amazing, really cutting-edge technology. We have a computer model that covers more than 1 million square miles. It forecasts weather for every single point across that entire region. We have access to two types of modeling. We have the short-term modeling and the long-term modeling.
With both that long-term and short-term view, we're able to identify where the fire risk is, and by identifying that, we can then decide what mitigations to deploy.
We've taken 30 years of historical data, and we use that to identify areas of potential risk so that we can mitigate as much as we can ahead of potential wildfires in the future.
By looking back at that data, we understand that when the conditions are at their driest and when the wind is at its windiest, that top 5%, when those two things come together, that's where 98% of the catastrophic fires have occurred. When those conditions are present, we want to, for safety reasons, de-energize the lines and let those conditions pass. And so we deploy that when we know that the conditions are escalating, but they're nowhere near that top 5%. And so we give ourselves a little bit of a safety buffer, say a 15% dryness, 15% windiness, to make sure that we're making a good balanced decision between the risk and the outages that are created through the mitigation steps of de-energizing.
I'm optimistic because I know that we are doing the work necessary to keep the public safe and to protect the infrastructure of the utility.
As that risk has increased, our response has increased as well to match it and do everything possible to reduce that risk of fire in the areas we serve.
Okay. So that video is actually smidge out of date. We are actually at 1 billion as of the end of 2024 for investment into wildfire mitigation and prevention, and we're looking at another 2 billion spent in this area by the end of 2027. So we do take this very seriously. We are putting a lot of effort into that in terms of the people and the systems and the work that we're doing. They talked about several different things that we do for wildfire mitigation and prevention. And just to kind of help you wrap your head around, it's a lot, we've kind of put things in these different buckets, and these are kind of the different activities that we look at when we are doing wildfire mitigation here in Oregon. So our first bucket is situational awareness. This is knowing what's happening now, what's happening tomorrow, what's happened the last 30 years as we build those models. And this is our forecast, this is our fire modeling. Chester's gonna go into that a little bit more when he's up here. Our next bucket is operational practices. So this is how we operate the system safely and how that changes during fire season. So it may change how we do work. It may change the settings on our system, the sensitivity to that. And Melissa will go into that in a little bit more depth. Our last one is, kind of the thing that you probably see the most is system strengthening and resilience. So this is rebuilding lines, making new power lines, new equipment, doing some of that vegetation management, things like that. So those are probably the things that you see day to day out in the community. And underlying all of that is our engagement. That's part of the reason we're out here tonight, is we want to get a chance to talk to our local customers across our service area about wildfire prevention in terms of what we're doing, but also about what you can do to stay safe before we get into wildfire season this year. So here in Sweet Home, you can see on the map, on the map of Oregon, you can kind of see these weird little purple blotches, mostly down in southern Oregon and then up by Hood River. Those are our areas of fire high consequence. So these are areas where the risk for catastrophic wildfires are much higher. As you can see on the pullout of Sweet Home, you guys are all blue. That means you are not in a fire high consequence area. That doesn't mean the risk is zero. The risk is never zero. It just means you're at a lower level of risk than maybe other places in the state. We have about 73 miles of distribution lines here in the area, 6 miles of transmission lines and a couple substations here in the Sweet Home area. But the work that we do, obviously we target our fire high consequence areas first because they're at a higher level of risk, but we do still do wildfire mitigation prevention measures here in areas like Sweet Home and around the service area. And so I'm actually gonna let Chester come on up and talk to you guys about situational awareness now.
All right, thank you, Hallie, and good evening, everybody. One thing I want to say first off is thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you spending some time with us. I do realize that your time is valuable. We all do, and hopefully you get a lot out of this tonight. And also, don't be afraid to get some extra food or anything while I'm talking. It's not going to bother me. I don't find it to be rude. You're here to eat too, right? All right, let's talk about that situational awareness. We're going to talk about how we're monitoring the weather now and how we're using that for short-term risk forecasting. We do a short-term or a 5-day weather forecast in support of operations so they know the best way. I mean, they already know how to operate the system. We're just meteorologists, but they know how to operate the system in an even safer manner during times of higher risk when it comes to the fire danger. So I want to first off start by saying my name is Chester. I'm a meteorologist at Pacific Power, been with the company for a couple years, and even though that's not a very long time, I have learned a lot, and I'm continuing to learn every single day. I learn a lot from coming out to these events, talking to you all, talking to customers, talking to the fire folks, people who have to go out and fight these fires. Just amazing and valuable information that comes from those first responders, and we've got to thank them for what they do. But also, And I want to point out too that as I've only been with the company for 2 years, that also a little less than 2 years actually, that means I was in your shoes on the other side of this microphone just a couple years ago. I didn't know what entailed the risk that that faces public utilities and private utilities and all utilities and across the United States. The fire risk is growing. It's getting worse every year, but for a myriad of factors. A changing climate, people are building and living in these wildland urban interfaces. So there's a lot of risk out there, and we want to do whatever it takes to keep the community safe, and that's what we're here to do. That's like our top priority. So you're going to learn some things tonight, stuff that I didn't know just a couple years ago, and it's amazing what we're doing, the work that we're doing to keep you all safe. More extreme weather is happening, as I mentioned. A lot of you all are here to find out about that. And it all starts with that situational awareness, knowing what is happening right now, what the conditions are, climate-wise, weather-wise, fire-wise. Those are sort of three different things, but all very much intertwined. Knowing what the weather has done for the last several months is very important because that has an impact on how we're going to, how our fuels are going to respond once we get to the warm season, which we are now stepping into. Knowing how much snowpack there is, how much rain or snow we got this winter, what the weather patterns are more likely to be. Some of these climate signals, you've heard of El Nino, that sort of stuff does have an impact on us here in Oregon. So again, situational awareness, I want to reiterate, is about knowing what is happening, what has happened in the recent past, even a 30-year historical look back. I'm going to talk more about that in a few minutes. And also knowing what is coming over the next few days so we can mitigate or lower that short-term risk of catastrophic fires along our electrical network. A little bit later, we'll talk about the long-term work that our crews are doing to make sure the system is safer and we can operate as safe as possible. So let's talk about the forecast process. There are 5 of us right now at Pacific Corp, our umbrella company. We're really 2 companies in one. We all work as a team.